What is the biggest secret you've ever kept from your family? Mom had a handmade heirloom blanket from her great-grandmother. When I was a kid, my action figures decided to torture my sister's Barbies for information on the location of the secret base. When the Barbie general still wouldn't talk after having her arm melted to a stump on the spinny bit on top of the lawnmower engine, she was forced to watch as her co-conspirators melted in a Tupperware vat of gasoline. When the interrogation started getting out of hand, I threw water on the gasoline to put out the fire, splashing it on the side of the house and setting the house on fire. I panicked, ran inside, grabbed the first heirloom blanket I could find and smothered the fire, melting one side of the blanket. My parents' relatively uninspired interrogation techniques were unable to solve the mystery of the missing heirloom. That I was addicted to fentanyl for almost a year and then beat that addiction all on my own. I just passed 1 year off of it and I haven't considered going back once. My dad's brother adopted me. They didn't know I found my biological mom. I didn't talk to her though. This was a long time ago. But I pretended to graduate from college after 4 years of my family paying for it. The last semester of my senior year I was told that because of an incomplete my sophomore year I wouldn't be graduating. When I promised to retake that class over the summer, they allowed me to march with my classmates in a cap and gown. Instead of telling my family the truth, I just went ahead with it. The whole family came. Big party, etc. Of course I did not take the class that summer. That hung over my head for 20+ years when after getting sober I completed my degree by working with the college and taking a local class. I had a miscarriage on my 17th birthday. I had found out I was pregnant 3 days after my HS boyfriend, and I had broken up when my sister caught him fucking my best friend. I didn't tell anyone I was pregnant. Except him. I hadn't figured out what I was going to do yet. Or how to tell them. Turned out to not matter. Because 2 weeks later, again, on my birthday, I woke up in incredible pain and my bed was just covered in blood. I was home alone. So I just called my ex to take me to the hospital and never said a word to anyone in my family. He and the girl he cheated on me with showed up. And she cleaned up the bed while he drove me to the hospital. I had already passed the fetus, she found it. It messed me up for a long time. And I tried to kill myself not long after that. My family does know about that. But they assumed it was a combination of my anxiety meds and my breakup. Those were factors. But the miscarriage was a big factor. 2. ETA. Thank you everyone for the kind words. This was nearly 15 years ago now. And I'd say I'd be healed now. I still think about it from time to time. Think about how I'd have a teenager by now. And how different my life would be. I came out as gay about 5 years later. Started dating a woman and moved across the country with her. Later marrying her. We have no children. I'm grateful that I could heal and see a better life for myself after that. Being sexually assaulted when I was 13. It was a difficult home life. And I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about anything. Some guy grabbed me on the way home from school. And, yeah, I got home late. They didn't notice. But I didn't feel like I could say anything. Especially as a young boy. Because I didn't even know it was a thing that could happen to boys when I was young. We were never given those safety talks that the young girls were given. It was just so outside my experience, I guess. And the longer time went past, the less I ever felt the need to say something. Because no one would believe it. Edit. I'm shocked coming back on Reddit and seeing the responses this has got. Too many people relate to this. It's both heartening and awful to see at the same time. As I'd not wish this on anyone. But anything which shows that people are less alone in this than it seems has to be a good thing. This happened to me over 20 years ago. So thank you to everyone who offered for me to message them to talk about it. But this isn't a fresh wound. Or even the worst thing I've dealt with in my life. And I'm at a point where I'm at a healthy place with it. Thank you also for all the kind words. I wish I had the time to thank everyone personally. But I do appreciate you all. And to anyone for who this is a fresher wound. Or who is struggling more with what they've been through. I don't have any magic words that'll help. I just know for me. I always remind myself that this was something that was inflicted upon me. It was never my choice. Never my decision. Never my fault. There's always going to be stuff in the world I have no power over. Even my own thoughts sometimes. But I can make the choice to be a stubborn fucker. And even if I don't win those battles, I'm not going to stop fighting them. My 14-year-old godson is actually my biological child. About 16 years ago, I disappeared in the middle of the night to start a new life away from my toxic family and went no contact with them for 3 years. I ended up getting pregnant from a one-night stand. I was homeless at the time, so keeping my son was not an option. My ex-best friend and her husband had been struggling to start a family of their own, so they offered to adopt my child. Plot twist. My husband and I currently have custody of my child and his 4 siblings. Their parents are in jail for domestic violence and child neglect. Edit. Holy bananas. I did not expect this to blow up. I want to clarity a few things. My son does not know I am his biological mother, but we plan to tell him soon. My husband and I plan to petition to adopt him and his siblings. Our lawyer warned us that his parentage would come up during the process. I want my son to hear it from me. He is dealing with a bit of psychological trauma due to the incident that brought the kids into our care. We are working with his therapist to find the best way to tell him the truth that won't cause him any more trauma. My ex-friend has endometriosis, which affects fertility. Pregnancy can put endometriosis into remission for some women. She was one of the lucky ones. Once in remission, she had no trouble conceiving the other 3 kids. Hey, when I was 5 or 4, I pooped in the dog's tray twice and it was hilarious. My folks were totally confused, wondering how our tiny Pomeranian managed to make such a big poop. Good times. Good times. I posed nude in a tasteful art project when I was 20. It was supposed to be a small private exhibition, but then it blew up, and at one point my naked image was on our major city's website to advertise a popular art festival, and a printed large version was displayed at a popular market during the festival. It was also printed in a book series. I was so worried my parents would see, but so far it's been 12 years and they still don't know. I am actually really proud of the work we did and sometimes consider showing them the book, but they may murder me. Edit. It was tasteful photos about capturing unsexualized nudity. No, I will not share it on my anonymous account. I was a professional model who was compensated and consented to the project, as the photographer was someone I have immense faith in. Life lesson: if it interests you, then have tasteful nudes taken. One day you'll look back and appreciate them. When I was a kid, I dropped the rake while working in the yard and the handle landed in dog poop. Instead of cleaning it off, I used duct tape to seal off the poop from the outside world. It ended up being used for almost 10 years after that, and I always thought about that rake's dirty secret. The secret was poop. I used to live in a house where the woods was our backyard. About 15 years ago, my stepdad and I were hitting golf balls in the back with his clubs. I still had a few golf balls left, and he told me to put his clubs away when I finished, and he went back inside. Well, when he was out of sight, I decided to use his $900 driver, which, at the time, was too big for me to use. I took a swing and the head of the driver immediately hit the ground and the neck snapped near the head and was hanging on by a few splinters. My heart sank and I quickly put the clubs away in the trunk of the SUV like he asked me to, and prayed that I wouldn't be murdered in my sleep. Well, a few days later my stepdad goes back to grab his golf bag. Luckily for me, the hydraulics on the back hatch of our SUV was starting to go out for a few weeks now, and it swung down and pulled a Marie Antoinette on that driver. My stepdad was pissed. I still haven't told him that I was mainly responsive for the destruction of his driver club. Edit. The cost of the driver may not have cost that much, but it was expensive. It may have been around $500. But as a kid, things that are always highly valued toward adults always seem really expensive. Edit 2. My stepdad always went with Callaway golf clubs. It was most likely a Callaway driver. I was in a long-distance relationship with someone from another country for 2 years. I would travel nearly every month to visit them, or they would come to me. They had no idea when they messaged me. I was sometimes out of the country, either in their country or on a trip somewhere else. I was living a completely different life that barely anyone knew about. Edit. It's been interesting to read some other people's similar experiences. A lot of people are also experiencing this due to culture, religion, or families not supporting. My reason was a little different. I had come out of a relationship with a very abusive and dangerous person. He had completely embedded themselves in my family's life, and when I finally left them, I lost my family with it. I moved to the next town over and kept contact with my parents, but all information about daily life was hidden. I built a life slowly. And part of that was a solo trip abroad, where I met someone. I was far too terrified to tell them the truth about what had happened with my ex. I didn't think they'd believe me, and I didn't want them to know. My parents eventually cut ties with him, but my brother stayed friends with him after. I went NC with my brother for 4 years in total. I was so scared my ex would find out and come looking for me due to jealousy that the relationship was kept a secret from most people I knew, including my parents, in case they let something slip to my brother. I have left the country now for good. And I'm sure there's people who I have some degree of connection to that have no idea I ever left. I've always been someone that has kept their cards close to their chest. And life circumstances have contributed to that greatly. My grandfather used to force me to French kiss him when no one was in the room. When he got super old, I was tasked with watching him one night. He peed his pants and was pathetically asking me to help him. But the 8-year-old inside me just let him sit there for hours until my parents got home. Spitting on his face before they closed the casket was the best thing I've ever done for myself. See how you like my saliva all over your face? You piece of shit. A secret from my grandparents, who I adored. They were actually my great aunt and uncle. Having raised my mother from the age of 2. Her mother had passed away and her father was an alcoholic, who ended up enlisting and going to war during World War II. I had a habit of looking through my parents' wedding album when I was very young. I loved the dresses, etc. At the back of the book was their marriage license, and I saw when I was about 11 that my mother's last name was not the same as my grandparents' last name. I asked her and she told me they were not her biological parents. I never told them I knew because I didn't want them to feel less than my grandparents, which they absolutely were. By this time my biological grandfather had passed. They were always Nana and Grandpa to me, and they were amazing grandparents. I was assaulted by my high school teacher, who we all thought was straight. I'd never tell my family about my saw, but he's now in prison for 10 years on account of child porn and Animal Crush videos. Edit 1. I should have worded it better, but sexual orientation is in no way indicative of anybody being a pedophile. Edit 2. This one is NSFW because a lot of people keep asking what Animal Crush is. So if you don't want to hear, keep scrolling. And I'm on mobile, so it might not register the way I intended. NSFW. Animal Crush is described as humans harming animals through crushing, flattening, burning, drowning, suffocation, impaling, or subjecting animals to bodily harm. That the reason I stress over my grades rights now is so that I have good enough grades to go to an abroad university on a scholarship and live my life there. It's not because I want to make my family proud or something. Nope. Just want to live. This is hard. But just how frustrated I am with them. They wouldn't have any clue just how angry I am at them for the things they did to me as a child, and how much I blame them for my insecurities and lack of confidence as an adult. And that we might seem okay every time I visit with them. But how I just want to yell at them and ask them why. Why they had to be so hard on me and couldn't just accept me for what I was when I was a teenager. My family thinks I'm still studying. I haven't told them that I've basically dropped out because of my sleep problems. Right now I do nothing but write, do comedy, paint and drink beer. They think I'm gonna have a degree in about a month and a half. So that's gonna be a fun talk. I have no idea who I am. Like physically or mentally. My family thinks I'm a strong-willed guy who loves certain things. But it isn't like that at all. I'm nothing like that, and I don't feel like I know myself who I am. It's like I'm an actor in multiple plays and have a certain different character for each individual interaction and situation. To be honest, I don't even know what my real personality is like. Edit. Thank you all for the kind comments and help. I really appreciate this. Not to worry, this isn't that bad. I'm fine. Just wanted to share this feeling, experience. That I have depression, or had. I handle it a lot better now, but always scary to let the guard down. And did 2 years of therapy as soon as I could afford it on my own. My mom is kind of against therapy and doesn't believe in depression too much, and I don't want to let her down. Also, I don't want them to worry about me ever. Self-harm. And that the only reason I didn't end myself between 11 and 17 was because I'm an only child and I was sure my mom would never survive. It's pretty damn awful to discover that you can actually not survive but just live also for yourself. And have real pleasure. That life can be enjoyable. And #X200B. Edit. A bit horrified by how quick the number of likes is increasing. If any one of you need it, I love you. I give you a hug. I hope you enjoy your day and that you didn't forgot to drink and eat. Am your shish godmother and no. You didn't deserve to be so worried that you were afraid for the feelings of the adults surrounding you as a child. Never. You deserve to be helped and to live a normal childhood. If anyone wants to talk, come to my DM. 876 days free from shish. So I can hear pretty anything. Edit 2. I would have loved to create a kinda equivalent for the mental issues, depression, suicide, anxiety, bipolarity. When I see how many people want to talk, I really feel like it would be worthy. Edit 3. Following the advice of a fellow Redditor, I created an Angels Anonymous community to let a free space for anyone to talk about any mental issue you have. Or any mark year you want to celebrate. I absolutely don't know how to share it, but it's written Angels Anonymous. I'm going to try to create a few groups to talk in. Feel free to come in. You're safe there, less than 3. Edit 4. I insist. Everyone is welcome on Angels Anonymous, no matter what you need. How you feel. What happened to you. We are all little angels trying to help each other. I can't make it live on my own. Speak on it. Do your own post. That's our family safe space. Edit 5. I'm amazed by the dozen of people who came to me to talk about their stories. Yet a lot of people are member without writing anything. Write. Tell. Express yourself. It's a free space and no one may judge you in it. You're worthy of respect and you deserve to be heard. My ex-wife's sexuality and how she abused me. We were young when we got married. She was 19. I was 20. We really loved each other. We both grew up in a strict Mormon area and were both raised Mormons. She had a lot of medical issues like gastroparesis, EOE, and many more. We met in high school and immediately clicked. Everything was fun and happy. We were great together emotionally and physically. We communicated really well and everything. I thought she was the one, so I went ahead and got the ring and proposed. We got married as normal, and then on the honeymoon she changed. She later told me she realized she was trapped. I worked 2 to 3 jobs to support us because her condition didn't allow for her to work. It was a horrible strain on me physically because the only jobs I could work were labor jobs. But I did it to support her. I loved her with all my life, and yet every day I'd get home and she'd be FaceTiming her friend from New York. Jillian and Maddie were very close. They talked 24/7. They made it a point to make me feel like I was intruding while they were talking. I got jealous of their relationship but tried to keep going. The lying started early. She'd tell me she hadn't eaten when her docs would put her on liquid diets. But then I'd find receipts for huge meals in her car on the dates she was on liquid diets. I'd drive her car to work and put gas in it for her so she didn't have to. About 5 years in, it was bad. I'd come home, and she'd be FaceTiming Jillian, so I'd just go play video games. Until it was time for bed. I'd go lay in bed and Maddie would come in and insult me. Usually randomly, like insinuating I wasn't good enough, and when I'd ask her why she said yes to marrying me, she would say, "What else was I supposed to do? Your whole family was there." She also started assaulting me. She would hit me a lot and pull my beard if I wasn't paying enough attention. She also sent most of our money to Jillian without my knowledge. She sent easily $10,000 over the course of 4 years. She even had visited Jillian a few times by this point, and I found lingerie in her luggage when she got home. I was heartbroken but couldn't bring myself to really believe it. At 3 years the drugging started. I'd ask if she could give me Advil and she'd hand me a few of her insane sleeping meds. I forget what it was, but I am a big boy and it knocked me out for a full day. Then when I noticed, I kept being so tired as days went on. Only to find out she'd been crushing her sleeping meds into my food while I wasn't paying attention. It was honestly really scary to not know what was happening and being so close to always being asleep. 5 years. This was the big one. I got a call from Jillian one day while at work saying something was wrong with Maddie. That I needed to rush home and help her. And to please be kind no matter what she says, so I rushed home and found my wife covered in blood with slashed wrists and a razor. She was sobbing. I was sobbing. And I begged her to tell me what was going on. She finally told me she was lesbian for as long as she could remember. But because of her religious family, she knew she'd be disowned and it would break her. So I did what I thought I had to do. I offered to be her cover for the rest of my life. I begged her to let me take care of her financially. She was too sick to be alone. So it would work out for her if I was able to take care of her. I offered to sleep in different rooms, and if she needed to we could re-evaluate as time went on. Just please don't cheat on me. That's the other thing. I have been cheating on you with 3 women. My heart sank. Everything I'd known was officially true. I couldn't tell anyone because she asked me not to, and I didn't dare make her mad. I was scared she'd abuse me worse. So I couldn't tell my parents. She told me therapy was for losers who can't be strong on their own and that I shouldn't go. She also told me she would do this to any man she had to in order to avoid coming out to her family. I went through it alone. 5 years later she came home one night from being with her other girlfriend and said she wanted a divorce. By then I was so broken down that I begged her not to. I was comfortable being her cover. I was manipulated into thinking it was fine. I had nobody to talk to in order to gauge my situation. I was still broken. I couldn't do anything right. I was depressed. Every day was a chore. And she finally left. Ultimately it all worked out for me. She left. I got to keep the apartment. The dog. The full amount of money was rolling in now. I was essentially rich. I was still heartbroken. I thought I'd been trying so hard to help her that I didn't understand how she could leave. I guess I was just too afraid of seeing her get hurt, and I was too comfortable being whatever punching bag I had to be. I'm now in a relationship with the most amazing woman, and I have never been happier. Every day spent is a laugh. We've been dating almost 2 years and have argued exactly twice. And both were over the fact she's able to wear mismatched socks and how utterly insane that is to me. My ex married another man only 4 months after our divorce. He's in the military and is always away from home, and my heart breaks for him. After all, she had told me she would do this to any man that I have to in order to not come out. TLDR. Ex was a mean lesbian. I was too broken to leave her. Never once did I tell my family or friends because I was scared of repercussions. I once had a sex ed lesson that flipped my whole world upside down. It was a boys-only class and the male teacher was talking to us about sexual health. He explained the importance of checking for lumps as this can be a sign of cancer. I can't recall exactly what the teacher said, but I basically left that class with the view of, if you have a lump, then you have cancer. You can probably guess where this is going by now. I got home and proceeded to check my balls for lumps. And sure enough, I felt a hard, tender mass on my left testicle. I must have been about 13 at the time and didn't know what to do. Of course, the teacher explained during the lesson that you should tell a parent or doctor if you do find anything of concern, but I felt far too embarrassed to tell anyone. I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell my mom, and my dad wasn't in the picture. So from 13 I was convinced that I only had so many years to live. I think I told myself that I would be lucky to make it to 20. Not that I was equipped with any kind of knowledge about cancer at the time. Other than people regularly die because of it. This belief set me on a path of self-destruction through my teenage years, which led to me breaking up with my childhood sweetheart, losing many friends, and moving out of my family home at 14. Fast forward to 17 years old when I finally gained the courage to tell a doctor and have them check. Turns out the lump is just a benign cyst and will have close to zero impact on my physical health. I wish I felt like I could have been open with my mom to tell her at the time. My early life would have turned out very different if I had. TLDR. At 13 years old. Sex ed made me think a testicle lump is cancer. Believed I was going to die young and proceeded to emotionally self-destruct over the following years. Got it checked 4 years later to discover it was only a benign cyst and I have nothing to worry about. I was SAED from 11 to 16 by my cousin, and I reported at 17. No one believed me. Half even blamed me. Even my father has a familiar relationship with the guy. That I was sexually abused by a neighbor when I was around 6. My alcoholism. I'm 600+ days sober. Edit. I should clarify. My wife knows. And she's been my rock and my biggest supporter through the whole thing. But my wife and my therapist are the only people who know. My mom and brother have no idea. My family has no idea that I had an abortion when I was 23. They would never. Ever forgive me? Edit. I have no guilt or regret over my decision. If forgiveness was ever needed, I gave it to myself a long time ago. However, it would not be worth the headache I would get from my deeply right-wing family if they ever found out. All they ever need to know is that my mom thought I was pregnant and it turned out I wasn't. Second edit. Instead of giving awards to this post, please give money to pro-choice charities. I know what it is to be pregnant and desperate for options. There is nothing okay with denying that choice to others. Nice try, Mom. About 13 years ago, I was informed that I had a daughter from my first serious relationship who was given up for adoption without my knowledge. Unbeknownst to her adoptive parents or her bio mom, she had the same heart defect I do. Mine wasn't found until I was about 26. She collapsed on a field at a park near where she lived in Massachusetts while playing soccer with other 7-year-olds. She passed away before they arrived at the hospital. Her bio mom, my ex, had kept in touch with the adoptive parents over the years. And our girl knew her as Aunt XXXXXXX. She had even given the adoptive parents some pictures of us together and gave them the story that I was in prison for moving some serious weight in drugs, complete fabrication. After our girl's death, my ex reached out. Feeling guilty, I was able to get in touch with the adoptive parents. They were nice, middle-class people who loved her intensely and gave her everything a kid needed to flourish. I'm glad she had people who loved and cared for her the way every child deserved. I'm glad the particular mystery of why my ex disappeared one day without a word was finally solved. But I was absolutely distraught that I wasn't given a chance to be a father. She never got to meet her grandparents, who would have adored her, particularly my mom, who she looked so much like. I never told my folks because I didn't want to break their hearts and know how badly mine was broken. 13 years later, I stand by that decision. They deserve to know. But both are in poor health. And I still can't bring myself to put it on them. My girl would be turning 21 this July. The only reason I hope that there is an afterlife is so I can meet her. Edit. I always thought that if I ever got a Reddit award, it would be for a pithy comment, not a personal tragedy. Thank you, kind Redditors. I'll pass it on to someone in the future. Edit 2. Really. I can't thank you all enough for your kind words and responses. Further proof that people are frequently just as good as they are bad. I wish you all well. I had a bilateral salpingectomy. Most of my, very Catholic, children are blessings you should have 8. Family knows I was never into the idea of raising kids and or being pregnant. But figured I'd change my mind. I got it done very young. And they think it was something with my ovary, true. A cyst ruptured. So I electively overkilled the whole problem. Not that it was a fairly elective sterilization as a result. Now I just let them think that I wasn't blessed with children, easier than the alternative. Growing up, our house was never clean and tidy. It wasn't disgusting or hoarder-like. We cleaned and vacuumed. But we also had a lot of shit just stacked in corners and on shelves that after a while, that was where those things belonged. Because of this, we really didn't use the dining room as a dining room. The table was pushed up against the wall and was used as quasi-work desk, storage area. One day when I was like 10 or so, I was sitting at one of the chairs while on the phone with my mom. She had a habit of droning on and on and on. When I am bored, I fidget. I grabbed one of her lighters that was just laying around and I was lighting little bits of paper towel on fire. Nothing big. Just enough to see the flame go. Immediately consume the whole thing and then go out and fall into her ashtray. Then I grabbed a full paper towel and lit it. The thing burned around so fast that it startled me and I dropped it on the carpet, where it very quickly burned, melted the cheap carpet on the floor in a very noticeable spot. I start freaking out and look over and there was a box of cleaning solution. I grabbed some bleach hoping that it would bleach out the black burned mess and I could pass it off as I accidentally spilled it. Yeah. It just turned to beige carpet, a shade or orange with little burned carpet fibers. I opened every window I could and moved the box of cleaning supplies over the spot. Keep in mind I am doing all of this while still on the phone with my mom. I braced for the next week or so for someone to find it and eventually come to the conclusion that it was me. No one came across it for months. And when they did, it was all just assumed that one of the chemicals leaked out and did it. I once tried to kill a family member because they broke my Barbie doll when I was 5 and added a few sleeping pills in their tea. That my mate I took to the ER with a fractured eye socket. Broken jaw. Shattered wrist. Snapped collarbones and a dislocated shoulder. Didn't drunkenly fall down 3 flights of stairs at his party. Was really a reaction to seeing him attempting to saw a chick I was close to, little sister close. My drug addiction to opioids between my 15 and 18. I went to hospital for a chronic disease and they gave me that. I fell into and could ask for medical prescription anytime, so I took these for 3 years and stopped with a big craving effect for weeks. Alright, so I gotta admit, I swiped some cash from our safe. I feel super guilty about it. But I just can't bring myself to come clean. I have no clue how they're gonna react. My cousin molested me when I was 6. He went on to groom a girl from ages 12 to 15. Apparently there were others. He went to prison. I have a tattoo of a girl sucking 2 dicks on my hip. Lol. Just how stressed out, depressed, and lonely I am. My suicide note was written on the wall of my closet for 4 years while I lived in that house. It said what you could find my body. Why I chose to do what I did, and explained a rough last will and testament. When I moved out, my folks, who owned the home I lived in, never found it. I'm way happier now than I've ever been. And when I took everything out of my closet and I found it again, I broke down crying. I grabbed some matching paint, painted over it, and was able to finally reconcile with the pain that I had felt for the past 8 years. To this day they don't know that I was very close to killing my biological father and would have followed through with it if a friend of mine, who is working for the police, didn't prank pull me over while I was on my way to murder that fucker. So it was basically me getting pulled over. My friend walking up to my car with a shit-eating grin and "Hello sir. Do you know why I pulled you over?" bullshit. Something he did a couple of times before already, but then him realizing that I was really not feeling well and asking what the fuck was going on. I told him, and that he's free to follow me and lock me up after I'm done. He looked back to his colleague, who was waiting in the cop car, then back to me and just said, "Drive home. Go to your mother." And I did. He came over to my place later that evening. Gave me a stern talking because of the situation I would have involved him in as well. Simply by telling him what my plan was. We had a couple of beers and talked. I promised him to never even think about this ever again. And that is pretty much it. Looking back, I realize how much a dick move me telling him what was going on really was. And he should have arrested me on the spot. I still don't really know why I even said anything in the first place. Maybe I wanted to be stopped. Also considering how easy I gave up. I was never in Japan. I needed the money for drugs and a drum set. I am sorry mom. I am taking this to my grave. I lost one of my mom's pearl earrings that she wore on her wedding day. Down the drain when I was like 8 years old. Haven't told her to this day. Pretty sure thinks she misplaced it. Sad face. My mom got me an internship at her work when I was 16. I ed one of her coworker. She was not that great looking. I was just a super horny teenager. I will take this secret in the tomb. Honestly, just how much my cousin has improved my life. My parents were total shitbags. Both dead now. My aunt and uncle raised me. They were amazing people. Sadly, both of them died in a car accident a few years ago and left behind my cousin. It was a hell of a battle gaining guardianship over her. Even though she wanted that as well. I'm male. And was single at the time, so that was a pain to deal with. But yeah, she's really just put a sparkle in my life that was never there before. I had a really shitty childhood. And my teenage years were rough till I moved in with my aunt and uncle. Being responsible for her really pushed me to succeed. And now I'm living very comfortably. And semi-retired. And I attribute that drive to better myself to her. Because after losing her parents, I never want her to have a bad day again. When I was 14, my mom confessed to me that my older sister is not my father's biological kid. She said she was in an abusive relationship with my older sister's bio dad. She finally resolved to leave him when she found out she was pregnant. She then met my dad a few months after giving birth and says that they fell in love. We used to get a lot of comments in school about us not looking alike. Comments that only increased after my younger sister was born and happened to have a strong resemblance to me. My father never treated us any differently. I loved my father a little more after finding out because I never once doubted how much he loved us all equally. I do resent my mother for having told me though. I wish she wouldn't have made me a secret keeper from my entire immediate family. My dad doesn't know I know. I was 14, young and confused. Now so much time has passed that I feel like it's too late.
I feel like part of me is betraying my sister for not telling her, but I also feel like it'd be a betrayal if I did.
Fucked if you do. Fucked if you don't. Thanks, Mom. I had no home or place to stay when I was 19 to 21 years old. I slept in phone booths. Sometimes at a friend's house. Everything turned out all right once I got a girlfriend. Moved into her mom's house. Started a career in programming. Not many people actually know this. That I had an abortion. My mama would be devastated. My homosexuality and that I don't believe her faith and want to separate myself from her faith. I was heavily abused by my mom as a kid. I'm talking. Slept on the floor and ate out of the trash can like a bad Cinderella rewrite. For the most part, I kept my mouth clamped until I got out. And then it all came tumbling out after I cut contact. Secret number 1. Kept for around 13 years. Recently, I had been considering reinstating contact with my mom. And I vaguely made an in the future. Maybe comment to a family member in the hospital. It prompted my mom to reach out to my husband and describe how much a toxic, problematic person I am. How much I've lied about my past. How abusive I am. And she'll consider it a blessing if she never hears of my existence ever again. She specifically asked my husband that entire message was passed along to me. I'm suddenly 7 again. Barely coping and absolutely destroyed. Secret number 2. I will cope with a few safe people. And otherwise take it to my grave. I know that an older relative was bad touched by a community member as a child. I was the only one who knew. The relative took that to their grave. I am a bi woman. I always have been. I'm married to a man, but my family doesn't know and they're very religious so I can't tell them. Sometimes I wish I could even though I'm married to a man. I just feel like they don't really know me. I have over 20 tattoos. A full leg sleeve and I have for over 6 years. My Nona has no clue I have even one tattoo and I see her on a semi-regular basis. I am scared I have so many at this point I'll give her a heart attack lol. My dad has always had a lot of guns. Both for hunting and as a hobby. Because of that, he was adamant about teaching gun safety to my brother and I. We grew up with them around the house. Although they were almost always locked up when my dad wasn't around to supervise. One day when I was pretty young, probably around 10 or 12, my parents went somewhere together so my brother and I were at home alone. I was playing in my room and I heard a gunshot. I ran downstairs to find my brother holding a pistol and looking absolutely terrified. I can still remember his face. Mine probably looked the same. What had happened was that he'd been goofing around downstairs and found a gun that my dad, for whatever reason, had forgotten to lock away. Being a kid, he decided to play with it. He knew how to turn the safety off, how to fire, how to aim, we both did, and while playing, he'd accidentally pulled the trigger. The bullet had ricocheted off the floor and blown a hole in the living room wall. Clear to the outside of the house. Both of us knew exactly what could have happened. And in an instant we both realized exactly what was going to happen if my dad ever found out. We worked together to cover up the dent in the floor with furniture and a rug. Under the guise of having cleaned the living room. And then we patched up the wall both inside and out. Rearranging more furniture to cover the patch. We both swore we'd never tell anyone. As much as we loved to get each other in trouble. We knew this one was bad. My mom found out years later when she finally found the hole in the vinyl siding and my brother confessed. My dad still doesn't know. My brother has been much more serious about gun safety since then and now has a collection of his own that is locked up to a near paranoid degree. Be careful with your guns. Guys. Everybody involved in this knew better and the worst still almost happened. That I'd walk around with a 50 milliliters bottle of someone else's piss down my pants. Just to pass the drug tests they'd make me do. 2 suicide attempts. I never told them about being molested as a kid. Not the biggest but kept for the longest that I've basically given up. I'm 38. Haven't had any kind of long-term relationship in 12 years. Am in poor health through a poor diet and sedentary lifestyle and have come close to self-harm more times than I can count. If it weren't for my parents, I'd probably go through with it. They think I'm studying right now. But here I am browsing Reddit weary. I was in the closet well into my adult years. There was a chance I was going to have a guy over to visit my parents and thought, I better come out now before springing a boyfriend on them. I got a girlfriend for 3 years and my family think that I'm a loser that can't have a GF. That I really don't like or love most of them. Respect things they did for me but also remember the shitty things they did to me. Guess it'll be shocking to them when I just part ways with them for good. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.